Good day, tech readers. Today we're having a look at the Logitech Craft Keyboard. Now, Logitech is one of the leading peripheral manufacturers in the world, if not the leading, certainly one of our favorite brands for mouses, keyboards, and so on. What makes the Craft Keyboard unique is this little dial on top here, but we'll get to that in a minute. We really like the way the keys are shaped. They're sculpted and the keycaps have little scoops in them, so they fit really comfortably under your fingers. Unfortunately, everyone's keyboard use is different. I'm a bit of a thumper. I like my keys to bounce up and down. These barely move at all. We find the key travel is very little. But for people who are used to typing on Mac keyboards or used to typing on laptops, it might not be as big of an issue. The keyboard is backlit, which is something we always appreciate, especially if you're working in a low light environment, if you're working on graphics, or if you're working on video editing. Often the room lights are quite low. These are backlit and you can adjust the brightness of the keyboard using keystrokes on the keyboard itself. There are, as you would expect, gazillions of little operations you can set up on the keys here. We find in practice very few people actually use all these complex operations, but they are there and you can use them to configure your computing experience with shortcuts on the function keys. But the most standout feature of the keyboard is, of course, this creative input dial, as Logitech calls it. We just like to think of it as a multifunction wheel, but it does lots of different things. It's really tooled up for the creative user, somebody who's working in Adobe Illustrator or working in Adobe Photoshop, for example, where you can use it to switch tools and change palettes and that sort of thing. So it's a shortcut for that. It turns, it clicks, and it has a number of other functions. We used it really inside the Microsoft Word applications, which is what the majority of people are using. And there it had quite a few useful features too. For example, in MS Word, you can use the wheel to make pictures in your documents bigger or smaller. You can size them using the wheel. You can also select text and then cycle through fonts and styles, and also change the font size simply by moving the wheel. We found that to be potentially quite useful. On the Google Chrome web browser, many of us end up with dozens of windows open at once. And using the wheel, you can now jump between all the different Chrome browser tabs until you find the window that you need. So that's potentially useful, probably not a killer app, but potentially useful. And last but not least, in Excel, we found that we could use the wheel to zoom in and out of our spreadsheet, which is often useful if you've got a very large spreadsheet and you need to move around quickly. You can also scroll horizontally very quickly using the wheel. We used it mostly for zoom though. So these are kind of useful features we got out of the multifunction wheel. What we were a bit disappointed about was it claims to work with Spotify. Spotify is the premium audio streaming app. We use that all day while we're working on our computer. And we found that it was a bit of a hit and miss. It seemed to be behaving rather erratically. So we were a little bit disappointed by that. But the truth is, there are great controls for a program like Spotify inside a regular keyboard anyway, so we weren't heartbroken. By default, the wheel does adjust volume in whatever multimedia you're using on your computer. So if you're in a creative industry, you'll probably get great mileage out of this. If you're a regular office worker, probably not as important, but it is a great looking piece of kit, certainly eye-catching. Your mileage may vary, and the price, about 3,000 Rand.